Hey everyone, I want to talk about pattern recognitions and how that can translate to writing. But instead of taking a usual like direct harpoon-like approach, I wanted to meander around Harvey's barn and pretty much impart a story of something that happened a while ago, and use that as an example for two things I want to talk about regarding writing, or well, one mainly, but yeah. Anyways, a long time ago, I used to get in arguments with a friend. We argued so much. We argued over so many things. In one of our discussions, she mentioned how she didn't know how I could pick up patterns. So one day she's like, "So how do you do it?" And I was like, "All right, I just kind of do." But I broke it down, and the way I explained it was that in poker, people usually, and this is just a very like general example, but people fall into tight aggressive, loose aggressive, whatever. And not only that, but so they have a way of playing cards or ranges of cards. Aces, kings, queens, ace, king, blah blah blah. And also, what they do with those cards, falls in a big pattern. So a lot of people will start shoveling money when they get really good cards. When you get trashy cards, they're just kind of asleep. Like you don't even notice them at the table. Anyhow, that's just a very loose interpretation of patterns that people can fall into. So one day she's like, and she's as what's a little bit of background. She loves photos, and being a photographer, she was always pretty big on taking photos, sharing them, whatnot. And she's like, okay, I'm gonna do something, and I want to see if you can pick up the pattern. So she's like, on this side there's gonna be aces, and that side not aces. And I was like, okay. Anyways, she opens her portfolio. It's quite extensive actually, but anyways, the whole point is that she's like, I'm gonna show you a few pictures, and you get to pick which ones fall in one pattern and which ones fall in the other pattern. And I was like, all right, no big deal. And she pulls out one, and then another, and then another, and another, and another. And before you know it, it's like, I don't know, 2 dozen or something like that. So I start looking at them, and you know that feeling that you get when you know something's wrong, not wrong, but your spidey senses are tingling, and you're like, all right, something's up. I couldn't discern what it was, and after about 60 seconds, I picked it up, and I was like, I got it. And I split the pictures in two piles, and this, I was like, this side aces, this side's not aces. And she looked at him, and she looked at me, and she looked at him, and she looked at me, and she's like, are you sure about that? And I was like, totally sure. I was like, I don't care how much money you want to bet. All those over there are aces. All those over there are not aces. And she's like, fuck. And I was like, all right. And she's like, how'd you know? And I was like, one, I know everything. So there's that. But that's totally subjective, and that doesn't answer the question. So what do I do? I pulled out all the pictures. By the way, I know I'm going like in a huge roundabout way, but there's a point to the story and how you can junction into writing and life. So I pointed at the pictures, and I was like, you see, whoops, sorry about that. I was like, you see all these pictures over here? And I started pointing at, A, B, C, D, F, G, A, F, I, all the points in all these pictures that followed one pattern. And I was like, all of these clearly aces. You can't even get close. Like, and then the other pictures, not aces. And she looked at it, and she smiled, and she facepalmed. And I was like, yeah. I was like, but nice try. It was pretty cool. Sometimes we talk about puzzles and whatnot and stuff like that. And sometimes she'd like pull one over me, and sometimes I pull one over her. The whole point's that people fall into patterns a lot of the times, and writing's the same. Why do I say this? Because when it comes to patterns, I fell in a bad one. I'm writing a book that I haven't announced, and when you're doing quality work, and you can discern at least when your mindset, it's all, sorry about that, your mindset's all good to go. Man, my hands are getting tired. I've been doing I worked out today. But anyways, when your mindset's straight and focused, when you're doing good for yourself, and when you're not. Whether it's writing or anything else, that's pretty much a fact. So the whole point's that I started worrying about surface level details when I shouldn't have, writing this book. Not unlike the pictures, where I told her, I was like, those pictures, all of those pictures look like they're aces, but they're not. Clearly, she pulled out the big guns on that one. So the whole point's that I told her, I was like, those pictures just, there's a distinct difference. And if you look at specific subtleties in the pictures, it's like looking at book covers. You can get totally lost in book covers and completely miss out on the story, you know? It's the same with a person. You could totally get distracted with surface level details and get lost into, you know, what that person might offer or what an experience about a certain thing or a certain place or whatever. So I say this because a lot of times we get lost in daily patterns. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. Recognition of those patterns helps us discern whether or not we need to like do more for ourselves, shift into a stronger mindset, better mindset, a more mindful mindset, and whatnot. So I just wanted to junction that story because it's easy for us to, you know, get distracted, get tired, get into bad habits, and find things that seem like they're doing good for us or they're quite advantageous, but in the end aren't really so, you know? So, yeah, I use pictures as an example, and I brought that about because we'd argue about poker or whatever, but the whole point's that, you know, there's patterns in life sometimes, and you can pick them up. And if it's about you, you should really know, you know, if you know yourself, then you know when you're doing good for yourself and you know when you're not, you know. So in recognizing that, you can grow as a writer and you can find out what's best for you and go from there and seek out what, you know, what will help you accomplish more, whether it's that or anything else. Talk to you guys later. Take care.